People, Deluded, I'm back again. Thank you very much for tuning back in. As usual, I hope you've got your health at this delicate time. I hope you've all made what you can of the day and, you've done what you could. Like I said, most importantly is your health. But moving on with Arsenal, there's only nonsense transfer rumours to cover, really. And I've had a chance to look at Arshavin's extended comments and things like that. So let's just crack straight on into that, man. Now, Philippe Coutinho's future probably lies away from Barcelona. We've seen us linked with Arsenal before. He's been linked with a whole bunch of clubs, both in England and abroad. In fact, here in Leicester's the latest team in for him, Spurs as well, and Arsenal. Anything can happen, but I'd like to think, unless it's a serious subsidised loan fee and loan sort of deal, I don't think any three of them clubs could get it. You never know. Again, I don't know this for facts, but I do, it's reaching. But Barcelona, you're hearing they're working with limited funds next season. Who knows if that's facts. Coutinho is someone that I think he should be given another chance, maybe under this relative new gaffer, but it is what it is. Now, obviously, his agent is Kaya Jarokyan. You hear that Real Sane, just away from Arsenal's, always had a decent relationship with him. You hear he's utilised him to some degree in the past. And you've seen him at the Emirates on a couple of occasions watching the team. He's an Arsenal fan. So this is probably the source of the rumours. And if you really push it, we need that creative player. Now, Coutinho has to think about what he wants to do, man. And you've heard him and Griezmann linked to PSG in relation to Neymar. That could be a decent move. Again, I don't know when football actually returns, but you'd like to think he could play Champions League football then, or go somewhere, or wants to go somewhere that plays Champions League football in one of the top 5-6 leagues in Europe, wherever it is. And you'd imagine that obviously rules out Arsenal, potentially Spurs. Leicester have got Champions League, so they could do it. But again, it's down to finances. You've seen him actually linked with a loan move back to Liverpool, and I don't know if that's what Klopp wants to do. I don't know if things like that. If it was me, as good as Coutinho is, the doors are always open. But and I would listen to the offer, but wouldn't bring him back. He's made his bed, he's got a lie in it. It is what it is, no personal feelings. Away from that, and you've all seen Dani Ceballos. Now, when I say that name, I'm sure a lot of you are tired of hearing the man's name, rightly or wrongly. He's playing well since he's been, given a proper opportunity, getting over his injuries and actually getting an opportunity in the team. Apologies for the helicopter people. But again, I don't know it to be facts, but beyond the fact of Arteta's his fellow countryman, he's playing a lot of football and he seems to be a decent friend of Bellerin's. It looks like when this year loan spell is terminated, whenever it is, he's going to go back to Real Madrid. Whether that's trying to break through in Zidane's plans, if Zidane's still there, you're hearing him and Bale don't have a future there. You've seen him linked with his old club Real Betis. I'm sure Seville's in the same area, so I'm almost willing to put £1 on it. He'll be linked with a Seville move. He's obviously got Valencia. You're hearing he misses his family and stuff, and he potentially wants to play in Spain for obvious reasons, people. I like Ceballos. I think he's a quality player. We've been down this route, but if he leaves, I'm not going to miss him. I think Ceballos is good, but I think away from Ceballos, what Ceballos has brought to the table just highlights what we're lacking. And I don't think anyone can. I think he's a decent player, but I think we can get over the line. I would love to keep him, but not love. I'd like to keep him, but you get the point. But him, I believe during his downtime, he's spoken to a Spanish-based publication via an interview on the internet, and yeah, man, he offered his thoughts on his current situation and whatnot. More or less, people. And in a nutshell, before I read it out, he spoke briefly about his injuries and going back into the team now. Doesn't really know what the future holds for him in terms of his long-term future, sorry. But he said, I have a loan deal with Arsenal until June the 30th, and I don't know what I'll need to do beyond that date. Now, obviously, with the worldwide epidemic, you'd think if football does return, because you're seeing Champions League's actually been suspended since I've started this vid, loan spells and potentially people that are running down their deals in the last 6 months, these things will be extended in line with when if the season gets back on. I say that, I'm not too sure how it would work, but you'd imagine. He said, my agent told me about the interests of teams and I wasn't playing because I was returning from injury. I started training and my situation changed. In the last month and a bit, I started to feel important again at Arsenal. Yes, I knew of Valencia's interest, but he more or less went on to say that he knew of it, but it didn't become a thing. And you know, it's good for him. It puts him. He needs to play well for a variety of reasons. If he plays well, Arsenal might try and keep him, whether he wants to stay here or not. Real Madrid, whether he's in their plans or not, you need to play to the point where people are looking around at Real Madrid and saying, how can you not include this guy? Like what they're saying to a degree with Odegaard right now. Do you get it? Obviously, if Real Madrid don't want to play you, Arsenal, you don't want to be here, then you've got to play to the form where, you know, if Real Madrid asks for a fee that might be pricey to the likes of Betis or Valencia here, has got financial issues, they're willing to, if they can, go out and do that. Now, I'm inclined to believe if he goes to Betis or Valencia, it would be another loan spell. I don't know that for true. And obviously, you could say, I think he would have went to the Spain, to the Euros with the Spanish side anyways, so it's not really a thing. But you could say with even Lacazette to a degree, because his form, it's not even championship quality. You've been granted an extended year to try and get in that Euros side now. Because if, in an ideal world, if this worldwide epidemic wasn't a thing, you know, Lacazette wouldn't be there. Ceballos would go, but would he be going there fully confident? Would he be going there as one of, I believe Luis Enrique is the manager, one of his first team sort of players? So it's in his best interest that he plays well when football gets back on. So the Spanish boss can't deny him. Real Madrid are scrambling over him, and the Spanish media are saying like Real Madrid are almost stupid for letting this go. You know, if they don't want to keep him, if they want to leave and things, you've seen him linked with Spanish clubs, you've seen him linked with AC Milan, you even seen him linked with our rival Spurs before he came here. So teams are interested in him. So if he plays to a great standard, you never know. In short, when the season does begin, assuming it, you know, we play out these final games, obviously I hope he keeps his momentum up, because as a team our results have been poor this season, and I'm not going to go as far to say we turned a corner, but it seemed like we had players individually and collectively, we had some small momentum with the Newcastle and Everton games, and in around that period top four was going to be a big ask, and it's impossible for me to see these boys do it. But it's, yeah man, I think Ceballos was playing well. You want to see that, man. He's come a long way from the injuries, from not being able to really thrive under Emre, to really, he got 17 minutes or something against Bournemouth, and now he's first name on the team sheet. Keeping up with the theme of Spanish midfielders, and obviously Mikel Arteta is Spanish. With his downtime, I know he's probably got enough Arsenal things to worry about to even, regardless of Corona, last him forever. I'm sure he keeps one eye open to La Liga or Spanish internationals, or if he doesn't do that directly, people around him do that. And we've been linked with Marc Roca. Now, I'm doing this vid in the evening. I put together it in the daytime. I'm going to cut to it. I'll read out the old ones. But since I've actually been preparing this vid, apparently the bulk of this story comes from he's changed agents, and his agent has offered him to Arsenal, and Arsenal have said no. So there's probably no smoke to this. But obviously he's Spanish. Arteta's Spanish. They've got one eye open on that. Apparently he's got a 40 million euro release clause. Espanyol, you know, they're probably a team that we can negotiate with. The season, I don't know what's going on with La Liga, because again, it's been suspended indefinitely. Espanyol were fighting the drop and stuff, and if they drop, obviously, I don't know if his release clause changed, but I doubt they'll be in a position to command 40 mil if he really wants to leave and do other things. He's 23. I see him being a replacement for Ceballos in a sense of not like for like. His strengths are completely different. He's a bit more of a deep liar in comparison to Ceballos. I feel he can pass the ball, he's steady, but I don't really think he's technically as, you know, he tries to provoke attacking situations and passing as much as Ceballos. But he's a decent player. He can snap at the heels and win it back. He can pass the... I wouldn't class him as that. He can pass the ball fairly alright, and he's a decent player. He's 23. He's contracted until 2022, 2 years to run. You can see where this comes from, people. But like I said, in recent hours or whatever, it's come to light allegedly that, you know, Arsenal have no concrete interest in him, people. So I don't know that to be true. I don't know for it. Keeping up in the theme with Arsenal's being interested in midfielders, and Lech Poznan, you know I can't pronounce names, and I'm gonna call this lad Philippe Marchwin. Hopefully I've pronounced his name right. 18 years of age. I'm not watching Polish football religiously. I'm not watching this team religiously. But when you hear this team and you hear, what's the one that Bielik came from, man? There's this and there's the next one. I think Warsaw or something. There's a couple teams. When you hear a man linked with them, even if you don't know about them, you're inclined to believe they've got to be decent. And I think he's, from what I've seen in in clips and videos, he looks okay. But I don't know nothing about this player really and truly. I just know he's been linked with Arsenal before. I just know in everything I read, it says he's good technically. In the brief videos I've seen, he looks a technical baller. But I'm not in a position to pass judgment on this 18-year-old. But apparently we're linked with him. He's been, you know, he plays for Lech Poznan. He's 18 years of age. Apparently he's one of the hottest people in Poland right now in terms of prospects. He's scored 10 goals for them this season. And that form is obviously going to alert clubs. He's contracted until 2023. He's been linked with us, and the other teams I'm about to list all have. When you look at them, or at least 3 of the following 4 names, they're interesting projects from a player from Poland to go to. You've got Hoffenheim. You've seen them bring in Joe Linton from Brazil, whether he's a good player for Newcastle or not. He's come there, he's developed. For me, he wasn't ready to go Newcastle, but now he's a Premier League baller. Do you get it? Hoffenheim do them little projects there. Atlanta, Champions League, play good football. They're decent as well. That's an interesting project. Do I need to spell to you what Ajax does for young players as well? He's also been linked with Inter Milan as well as us. So, there's 5 interesting projects for him. And, if these are 5 name drop teams, there's about 25 other teams that know about him, probably want him, and, equally interested in what he has to say. Like I said, I don't know too much about him to know, how much of a fee we're looking at and things. But what I like is that we're out here looking. We're clearly looking for youth midfielders of sorts, and we're clearly looking for players with time on their side. And if we can get the best players from wherever they are for whatever thing, I'm on it. I don't know too much about him beyond to the honest Google search and watching videos, people. But I always tell you lot, we're fighting against it in terms of work permits. But with Arsenal, at least to fan level, you don't really know our strategy of sorts. We like young players, we want to develop them. But you look at Dortmund, they got Haaland. Obviously, he's going to be sold on. But, they've got him and he's helping them immediately and then will be sold on. Jadon Sancho, the same. And I'm sure there's a bag of other players we could sit here and say, if we don't really have the money to go out there and buy these ready-made products, for the fees quoted, then we need to be looking at bringing either the best youth players in or players that have that scope to become something before they break out. You get it? It's easier said than done, but you got to get the Lewandowski before he goes to Dortmund. You've got to find a player that people are not looking like with Aubameyang and develop him and make him a certain sort of player. You've got to do these things and move quickly because, when I look at things like Sane, 40 million at Schalke, not just us, Bear man missed the boat with that. Why didn't they just pay the fee when it was their sort of thing? But we've been linked with him. We'll see what happens. We've also been linked with the 20-year-old American centre-half Chris Richards of Bayern Munich. I'm not too sure what to believe by that. I think that's just nonsense. But again, I don't know it to be true, people. Moving away from that, and we've been linked with 2 brothers, Hamid and Ahmed Traore. Forgive me for any mispronunciations. Ahmed, I always get them mixed up, but Ahmed is the winger. He plays for Atlanta, primarily within their youth sides. Like if you watch the Youth Gen, which is the equivalent to the Youth Champions League this season, he's chipped in with some important goals. He's very good 1v1. He's quite skillful, and you can see why teams are looking at him. And I have touched on him before. His brother Hamid, now Sassuolo, central midfielder sort of player. First came about him just by watching, I'm sure he used to play for Empoli, and obviously from time to time I was watching Ismail Benassia, now of AC Milan. He went to Sassuolo and he's been playing decent, people. He's quite good with a ball at his feet. He's a fairly decent dribbler. He's good. He's got a decent passing range. There's a lot of development to be done. Do have reserves as to whether immediately he could hold his own in the Prem. For us in a consistent level, we'd have to be patient. But I do think he's a decent player, and for 20 million, I think quoted for him, you can't really complain, people. So yeah, man, I think they're both very decent players, and like you will know, individually, and because they're brothers, they've been allegedly earning rave reviews in Italy, as you would if you're playing quite well, people. So out of all the links we've had, people, I would more like the Hamid brothers, people. I like both of them, in particular the young winger. It is what it is in that regards. Finally, we might as well wrap this up with Arshavin. I've finally been granted some extended comments of his via Google. I've mashed them up, but first and foremost, he's spoken of Mesut Ozil. First and foremost, he said, as a player, of course, I respect him. Mesut is a world-class player, but for me personally, he slows the game down. I would prefer to use another player. And I get where he's going. I don't think he slows the game down in terms of his intelligence. I just think we need more. As a team, we need to play quicker. I think the problem in which he spoke about is that Ozil needs to shoot a bit more. The obvious is that Ozil is 31. He's not. I don't think he's as poor as people think. I do think if the team was fixed up in another sort of way, you could utilise him. But at the end of the day, he's not the best. He's not doing what Aubameyang's doing, sort of thing, respective in his position. So you're looking at his age, you're looking at his wages, you're looking at the contract length, and thinking, let's move him on. The problem is with Arsenal, and as much as, listen, for me, we need about 3-4 signings. I believe we've got to get a centre-half and a centre midfielder or two, including this sort of skill set. But the problem then becomes, people, do we have that money? If scouts are not going to do their job for that creative player, do we have that money for that sort of man? You know, you could get a Coutinho on loan, you could go with a young player, but you'd have to give the young player, unless it's like a Hervites or something, even him, time to, you know, prove that they can do this thing. And when I look at our creative midfield, creative options, or people that would play in the quote-unquote 10, you know, it's not really filling me with any optimism. And I think about it, you know, if we spend a decent amount on a more box-to-box dominant midfielder, we spend an outlay of a centre-half. I'm not too sure on what else Arteta wants to do. Will there be money for the sort of player that breaks the lines and can, if he's not scoring, assisting, these sort of players that, with football being ridiculous in terms of fees now, cost that sort of ridiculous fee? Will it be a thing where we say, yo, listen, let's address the spine of this team next season, you know, and Aubameyang, you know, next season we might even keep Aubameyang, and we say next season we go for a strike. And I'm not saying I agree with this, but next season we go for a striker or a creative midfielder. We have I don't know, people. We have basic tuna sandwiches for a year. Next year, when we get a better job and we've been saving money, we can start getting, you know, them fancy ones where it might be tuna and chili or tuna and pepper, and we might even can go weight rolls and them things there. But it might just be bread and butter, corned beef sandwiches, bully beef for now. And you look at the options in midfield in that role, and none of them really fill me with any pride. Like, not pride. Pride's not the right word. I don't want to say confidence, but it's like, you know, Joe. I don't think that's Joe's role. I'll support him until he stops playing there or whatever happens. But I don't think that's his skill set personally. So I can't really expect 10 goals, 10 assists, being involved in these sort of things. I don't think he could develop, but I don't think right now he's of the level, breaking the lines and the decision making to be there. I really like Emile Smith-Rowe, especially because I've been watching him. He's had a positive spell at Huddersfield, but you know, he's gonna have dry patches and things. Ceballos isn't. So Ceballos, for me, I like him where he is, but he could play there. He's not gonna be here next season. Mkhitaryan, exactly the same things I've been saying about Ozil apply to Mkhitaryan, people. Do you get it? Same contract length, ironically. You might have to utilise them, and none of the 4 players I've just said really fill you with any, like, yeah, like, we all know you're decent, but it's like, But moving forward, yeah, that's what he's basically said. He said Mesut is a world-class player, but for me, personally, he slows the game down. I'd prefer to use another player. He spoke on Mikel. He said, Mikel, as we can see, is the opposite and plays him a lot. He has improved his game at Arsenal, but still in the future, I do not see him here, obviously because of his age. He also does not shoot enough. He always looks to pass, and that makes it simple for defence. And yeah, it does. If you know Mesut Ozil, you know he's not going to shoot. He has scored some decent goals when he does decide to shoot, people. Keeping up with Arteta, people, he said it was a good choice because he has spent time at Arsenal and knows the club well. He worked next to Arsene and can take good experience from him. He also has the respect of the club and the players, and since he has taken over at Arsenal, they have changed. Not too much, but in a good way. At that time, I didn't really think about this, but when I go back to that time for a short period, he became captain and showed capabilities to lead and manage people. He would always discuss how we need to play at half-time and after the game, then showed his version of the game. So it's been something in the making, people. He's been a manager before he actually took the jump and leap into this sort of thing, people. Moving away from that though, and he spoke on he did speak on Pepe, but I've said the Pepe comments in a previous vid. On Martinelli, he's echoed what we've all said. A blind man could see this with Martinelli. But he said, and he offered some extended points, I see a big future for him, but when the team as a whole is assessed, he went on to say, For me, Arsenal's squad is not balanced. Offensively wise, they are very good in attack and they play very pretty football. It's good to watch. I think you've been a bit, I want to say we play pretty football because I've seen worse players actually bop it. I remember when our football was, if not better than Barcelona's. I'm going to be a bit deluded, people. I don't think it's of that level, Arshavin. It's been better, and that's probably what you're saying. But yeah, you went on to say, but defensively, even in my period, Arsenal is weak. And that's damning because it's the truth. Sometimes that is down to injuries and sometimes they don't have enough experience, but I don't know why this doesn't change. Trust me, people, man. I don't know. I think I missed out some comments in relation to... Oh, no, I didn't. So, yeah, that's on Martinelli. I mean, a bit of more personal Arshavin stuff. He said in relation to the victory against Liverpool, where, well, it wasn't a victory, it was a draw, I'm bugging out, but he scored them 4 goals. He said, I remember that now. I was exhausted after the game. I was empty. I was happy when you score 4 goals. That is normal. But I'm proud that nobody has done it since at Anfield. But I did it. It makes those 4 goals special. I'm sure one day, one guy will repeat it again. But I don't think it would be possible to do in this moment, though. Liverpool play unbelievable football. And if not for the current situation, they would be champions for sure. Obviously alluding to, sadly, the corona thing. He did say, my only regret is that I didn't win trophies with Arsenal, especially the League Cup final against Birmingham, who were relegated soon after. Even that final we lost. The problem was that every year we would lose players. First Nasri, then Cesc Fabregas, then Robin Van Persie. If we had kept that squad for 2 or 3 years, it would have been different. And yeah, man, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And yeah, I mean, you can't really add anything if you're an Arsenal fan or just a football fan. You already know that's the case. He did offer some thoughts in the future of the Arshavin name and his son. As you know, his son, I believe, is more or less signed to Barcelona, but in their, what I assume is their Moscow soccer school branch. And obviously, as he gets older, might be a decision to make. Does he move to La Masia and whatnot? Or it could just be for fun. He could just be there. It typically happens. More so with current players, their sons might just be in academies that they're at. But he said, my son is with Barcelona, but unfortunately, so far only in the Moscow branch. But I hope he will do better. So clearly he's decent, but they haven't seen enough. However old he is, again, he might be 5'6", so it's out of the question. But enough to say, you know, if he's 50, if he's 13, 14, 15, 16, are they saying, yeah, eventually you're going to La Masia, you're going to have to move from Russia to Spain? I don't know. But by the tones of it, it implies that that's what he wants his son to do in the next step, but it's not there. He also said, if one day he can join Arsenal, of course, that will mean he has reached the top level as a footballer, and that would be good. So yeah, he'll be following in his father's footsteps and things like that, people. But yeah, there's not much more to say. We've spoken about Dani Ceballos, we've touched on Marc Roca and a couple of other names we've been, you know, linked with. We've spoken about Arshavin. There's really not much more to add or speak about. And when there is, you know there'll be a deluded vid. Not even Corona could stop the guy. On a serious note, people, stay at home, stay safe. And yeah, man, the rest of the obvious. But for now, please like, please subscribe, please comment. Deluded, I'm out. Thank you very much for watching.